The Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency Maithripala Sirisena, President of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka. I request protocol to escort His Excellency. On behalf of the General Assembly, I have the honor to welcome to the United Nations His Excellency Maithripala Sirisena, President of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka, and to invite him to address the Assembly.
May the Noble Triple Gem bless you. Mr. President of the General Assembly, Secretary General of the United Nations, Heads of State, Excellencies, and my friends. It is with great pleasure that I stand before you this evening at the 73rd General Assembly of the United Nations, representing Sri Lanka for the 4th time. Sri Lanka has been a member nation of the United Nations and has acted in accordance with treaties and conventions of the United Nations at all times. Sri Lanka, for the past 3.5 years, I have been the head of state of Sri Lanka, and today we are quite satisfied with the progress we have made during the past 3.5 years. I was elected the President of Sri Lanka in January 2015. At that time, the executive presidency of the country held excessive power. In fact, these powers exceeded that of a monarch and reached almost the powers of an emperor. However, these excessive powers of the executive presidency have been handed over to the Sri Lanka Parliament by me. It is with happiness I inform you of the manner in which I have let go of the excessive powers of the executive presidency. During the past 3.5 years, we have taken action to consolidate democracy, human rights, and fundamental rights of the people. Furthermore, media freedom has been strengthened and the independence of the judiciary too has been strengthened. That is why I state with dignity that Sri Lanka you see today is entirely different from the Sri Lanka you would have seen 3.5 years ago. Furthermore, it is imperative that I bring to your attention that as members of the United Nations, we have certain responsibilities and duties to this world. For instance, the United Nations must focus greater attention towards the trends in international politics today. I believe when talking about trends in international politics, all over the world, the issue of refugees is prevalent. This issue is a very complex issue, as we all know. The United Nations and its members and many other organizations today render a great service to support the refugees. However, these efforts need to be more expansive and they need to be strengthened further to provide benefits to the refugees. Sri Lanka follows a non-aligned foreign policy. In fact, Sri Lanka is one of the most senior members of the non-aligned movement. In 1976, a very successful summit of the non-aligned movement was held in Sri Lanka. Every nation in the world are considered as friends by Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka does not have any enemy in the world today. So this is something that we are quite happy about. When we look at the trends in international politics, I believe that the issue of the Palestinian people requires greater attention from the United Nations and all other world powers. Sri Lanka supports the freedom struggle of the Palestinian people. Sri Lanka has always been in support of their struggle. Many inhumane acts take place. Therefore, the United Nations and every nation in this world, I believe, must stand strong to prevent that kind of activities from taking place. There are many other issues plaguing the world. For instance, poverty is a major issue that is affecting the populations of the world today. The United Nations must be more involved in fighting poverty, in my opinion. When talking about poverty, we can say that hundreds of millions of people of the world population spend their days in hunger as a result of discrepancies in revenue, climate change, and discrepancies in the distribution of income have caused many issues. To alleviate poverty and also to battle the consequences of climate change, the world has to face many challenges, and I believe this causes poverty. Talking about poverty, I believe that in countries heavily affected by climate change, many efforts are needed to help people be prosperous. There are many issues plaguing the world, like I mentioned earlier. On the other hand, the weapons racket, the drug problem, and the issue of illegal pharmaceuticals are major concerns that are affecting society today. And yesterday, I am happy to note that the United Nations, with the President of United States, His Excellency Donald Trump, action was taken to bring together the nations of the world through the global call to action on the world drug problem. This is something that we appreciate highly. Prevention of the drug menace requires extensive efforts from each and every country together with the United Nations. Furthermore, at the international level, we understand that the United Nations plays a very important role when it comes to in fact, I must mention in particular the Paris Agreement on climate change, which is of utmost significance to everything living on this earth. Sri Lanka is, as a member of the United Nations, Sri Lanka has ratified this agreement, and I would like to bring to your attention that Sri Lanka is committed and will take necessary action on matters agreed as per the Paris Agreement ratified by Sri Lanka. Speaking about Sri Lanka, like I mentioned earlier, we have taken action to consolidate democracy, strengthen fundamental rights and human rights, as well as media rights. And I would like to bring to your attention, Mr. President, that for 30 years, Sri Lanka suffered a long-drawn conflict. It's been 10 years since the end of the conflict, and during these past 10 years, a massive transformation has taken place in Sri Lanka, especially during the past 3.5 years. The government has taken action in Sri Lanka pertaining to post-war situation. We have strengthened national reconciliation. We have taken steps to ensure non-recurrence of war. An extensive program is currently being implemented to achieve this reality. When it comes to human rights, the government continues to fulfill its duties in protecting the rights of the people. And the government continues to seek the support of the United Nations to strengthen this program, the course of action that we want to follow. Sri Lanka, the Sri Lankan forces were able to defeat one of the most brutal terrorist organizations of the world. That is why Sri Lanka today prevails strongly as a country with permanent peace. Our security forces were able to defeat a very serious terrorist organization. I recall with great respect the efforts made by the tri-forces of Sri Lanka to bring peace to the country and to strengthen the unity of the country. By now, like I mentioned, 10 years have lapsed since the end of the conflict. Therefore, I encourage the world community to not think of Sri Lanka the way it was done 10 years ago. I invite the international community to view Sri Lanka from a fresh perspective. Sri Lanka suffered a difficult war. Today, permanent peace prevails in Sri Lanka. The government is taking action to consolidate reconciliation. Many actions have been undertaken in this regard. Human rights are protected in Sri Lanka today. Economic prosperity is being achieved for a better future for Sri Lankans. Therefore, the future of a peaceful nation deserves to be looked at from a fresh perspective. I encourage the international community to allow Sri Lankans to resolve their problems on their own. Independence of a nation is of utmost importance. The humanitarian endeavors made by us, the efforts made by us to strengthen democracy require your cooperation. For Sri Lanka to continue in its commitment to forge ahead, consolidating democracy and protecting human rights requires your attention. As an independent country, we do not want any foreign power to exert influence on us. We want to appeal to the international community to give us the room to resolve the problems that we are facing, so that the right of the Sri Lankan people to find solutions to their problems is respected. As Sri Lankans, we are willing to find solutions to the problems that we face. At the same time, I would like to request your cooperation to make this a reality. We are working to eliminate fear, suspicion among the different ethnic groups in the country. And I believe with your cooperation, this can be achieved. Not only in Sri Lanka, but in many other countries of the world, the poor needs to be given priority. The new generation deserves to be heard. Their issues must be provided solutions. Sri Lanka, in conclusion, I would like to quote Lord Buddha. In the Tripitaka, the Samyukta Nikaya, in SN 36.6, the Salla Sutta, there is a verse which says that if a man were pierced by a dart, he will undergo a painful physical feeling. At the same time, he will start worrying and grieving about what happened. Thus, the man pierced by a dart undergoes two kinds of pain. So all this pain, all these kinds of pain are undergone by the person who was affected by it. Similarly, when it comes to Sri Lanka, it is the people of Sri Lanka who undergo the pain of undergoing the war and the feelings related to it. Therefore, I take this opportunity to call upon your support from the international community for your cooperation. With that, I would like to wind up. Thank you very much. May the Noble Triple Gem bless you.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I wish to thank His Excellency Maithripala Sirisena, President of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka. May I request representatives to remain seated while we greet the head of state.